Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we are visiting with Edie Littlefield Sundby, author of The Mission Walker. I was given 3 months to live. Edie, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I want to read this to you because it's just so stunning. Edie Littlefield Sundby becomes the only person in history to walk the 1,600-mile El Camino Real Mission Trail. After 79 rounds of chemo, defeating a 3-month prognosis and with only one lung, Sundby completes a monumental journey of faith and perseverance and shares her story in The Mission Walker. Have you always been a feisty, scrappy, I'm not taking it, kind of, I'm going to kick it as hard as I can kind of girl?
Kind of. My mother used to call me a wigglewort, because I was always moving around and wiggling, and yeah. I don't take things standing still.
It's interesting that we don't change that much from our youth. We really don't. I think that you basically, whoever you were in high school, that's who you are today.
Exactly.
We never really...
Yes, President Nixon, didn't he say at one time that, show me the 8-year-old boy and I will show you the man?
Yes. And that's very true. So what was it like growing up? Where did you grow up? What was family life like for you? Was there church involved? Who are you?
Oh, yes. I grew up on a cotton farm in Oklahoma. My father was older. He was 25 years older than my mother. He had been married before, and he lost his wife at the age of 33. She was 33 when she passed on, and he had 5 children. And he married my mother about 8 years later, and they had 7 of us. So I'm the next to the youngest of a family of 12, and my dad was an Oklahoma cotton farmer, and we were raised there on the farm without electricity or running water, and we ran wild. Children on a farm are so blessed, and I was doubly blessed because my parents were of such strong Christian faith, and so they taught us so much about expectations, not to get carried away with what was happening, because have a bigger perspective, have a spiritual perspective of things. For example, in Oklahoma, I was born in the 50s, which was the filthy 50s, which was almost as bad, probably as bad as the Dust Bowl, years before. But my dad and my mom never reacted to that in a negative way. They would just work harder, use a little less, and know and trust in God that there's a time of drought in life, but also there's a time of rain, and the rain always comes.
Well, you have such an interesting background that you were one of the first female sales executives at IBM. You later went on to be a vice president of Pacific Telesis. I worked for AT&T in Los Angeles at the Beaudry Center. So I was a national sales manager after divestiture of independent telephone company sales. So we have a very similar background. I worked for
Very interesting.
I worked for Jim Cameron. I don't know if you remember that name at all, but he was my vice president. But I was there in LA from 83 till 90 with AT&T till I adopted a newborn baby and wanted her growing up calling me dad, not dude. So I moved back south with the newborn. So very, very interesting. Now, you were the second youngest of 12 children on an Oklahoma cotton farm without electricity or running water. And you went on to become a sales exec for IBM. That's 2 extremely distinct worlds.
I was really raised by parents who believed in that whatever the heart can conceive, with God's grace, we can achieve. And my mother was a living example of that. My mother was she was raised during the Depression, and she was actually in her teens in the Depression, and she was a hired girl. She actually lived in people's homes and helped them with their cleaning and their baking and their ironing and their laundry. She started that at the age of 13. And she was the oldest of 15 children, a daughter of a tenant cotton farmer down on a riverbank. They lived in a house, a 2-room house with a dirt floor. But my mother, she never even considered that as being a disadvantage. She actually worked her way through college during the Depression, during the 30s. My mother, living as a hired girl, working in people's homes. She'd get up at 4:30, do all the family work. Then she would take her classes. She couldn't afford books. She would get her studying done in the library. And that's the kind of mother I had. Unlimited possibilities. The world is open to us. All if we can conceive it with the grace of God, we can achieve it.
You know, that's so extraordinary. We've had a number of guests who have been on where they say that, telling your child they can be anything they want, I can't really be an NBA player. I can't really be an NFL star. But within the skill sets that God has given us, with the gifts He's given us, taking full advantage of those gifts does not limit us. And so it's really within the construct of you plus God make a majority.
Exactly. And, I think that we all pretty much know, like you said, even we are what we were when we were young. Even as a youngster, if you look at your children, they have a passion for certain things. And it's almost like they're listening to God, whispering to them what that passion is, their unique potential. What is it? And we sometimes lose that ability to hear God's voice. And sometimes we try to do things that aren't really suited to us. In other words, that aren't our passion, that's not our heart. But we always seem to get back to the path, one way or the other. Life just kind of happens to bring us back to that path of where God kind of intends us to be.
Well, you went on to accomplish so many things, but you reached a time in your life where you and your husband had just mortgaged your home to start a new business. And that kind of leap of faith, that belief in really taking out kind of pulling the rug out from your comfort level, everything basically paid for, you had a great career, you had done things right, and now you're off to the races to launch a new business venture when you hadn't been to a doctor in 20 years?
20 years.
20 years, and you started having some abdominal problems.
Yeah, my back started hurting, excruciating pain, and it wouldn't go away. It kept getting worse. My right shoulder was the pain was behind the right shoulder. You couldn't really identify where it was coming from. It was just a dull pain that turned into a sharp pain that would not go away. And I learned later that was actually the cancer growing in my abdomen, pressing against nerves in the abdomen that radiate up into the shoulder, that connect into the shoulder. And so, yes, severe back pain, and I'm talking about intense back pain and shoulder pain, often is a sign of cancer.
So that's a word to our audience that if you're experiencing lower back pain, upper shoulder pain, that this could be something more than just a strain or a sprain, and you ought to get it checked out. Now, you were alone when this diagnosis was given to you. First of all, what was the diagnosis?
Yes, I was alone. My husband was putting our business together in Europe with a programming team. My children had just gone away to college, their first year at college. And so I was alone, and one of my daughters had taken a gap year. She was going to delay starting to college for a year. And she and I had gone to India to work in an orphanage in India, an Episcopal run orphanage, or backed and Lutheran backed orphanage in India. And we'd been over there 3 months, 2 or 3 months. And so I thought I had picked up a parasite there. On the flight home from India, my daughter went to put her head in my lap to sleep. We were in very cramped touristy classes. And just the pressure of her head on my abdomen hurt so bad, extreme pain. And so when I got home, I realized I thought it was just a parasite, abdominal issues. And again, I was having the pain in my back and my shoulder. So I went to see a doctor. And but I didn't have a doctor. And so I couldn't see a doctor for 3 months. You just can't get in to see a doctor when you don't have a doctor. But luckily, his physician's assistant asked me some questions, and she found out. She asked me to come in, and she did a stool sample. She did some other things, some blood work. She quickly ruled out that it was not a parasite. One of the things also, when I stepped on the scales, I was shocked. I had lost 20 pounds, and I was absolutely shocked. And when I told her I had lost 20 pounds and I was shocked, then she became even more alarmed. And she did one test after another. First, it was an abdominal ultrasound. Then it was a pelvic ultrasound. And then it was a CT, contrast CT, and then it was an MRI. And so all of this happened in the course of 2 or 3 days. I had not seen the doctor. This was just with the physician's assistant doing all these tests. Of course, the doctors in the background were calling for all these tests as they were trying to determine what was going on inside me. And so I get a call at night, 3 days after I started this process, from this doctor that I had an appointment with in 3 months. And he said, Edie, can you come to my office tomorrow at 8 o'clock? And can your family come with you? Well, that's the kind of call, Eric, you don't want to get at night from a doctor. And I immediately, I knew it was serious, because as I was going through all these tests, the technicians would be jovial, and the lab workers would be jovial. Then all of a sudden they'd stop talking. They would start whispering among themselves in hushed tones. And I just had a feeling they were seeing things inside of me that I really, really didn't want them to see. So I went to see that doctor at 8 o'clock the next morning. I walk in his office and I'm all alone. He says, where's your family? And I explained, well, I'm all by myself. My children are away at college, and my husband is he's in Europe working with a programming team on our new business. And he said, well, they need to come home. They need to come home quickly. And he didn't really want to tell me, but he felt that he had to tell me. And he said, you have cancer. Those words, Eric, you have cancer, are probably the 3 most frightening words that any person can hear. And so many of us hear that. Something like 39 to 40% of us will have cancer at some stage in our lives. And it's terrifying. I didn't really know that much. I was arrogantly healthy. I'd never been to a doctor, like I said, since the birth of my children. I didn't even have a doctor. But I didn't know that much, but I knew enough to ask the next question. And I said, Dr. Murad, has it spread? And at that point, he put down the file folder, which is about 2 inches thick, that had my name on it. He put the file folder down, and he took my hands in his, and he looked me in the eye, and he says, Mrs. Sundby, yes. He said, you have a lot of cancer. You are filled with cancer. We believe it might have started in the gallbladder, but it's in the liver, and you have in your peritoneum, and I had no idea where the peritoneum was. He said, in your peritoneum, you have a 17 centimeter tumor. And I said, how big is 17 centimeters? And again, I'm so stunned, I'm shocked. And he says it's a little over 7 inches. So I sat there, and all I could do was put my hands 7 inches apart. And I realized that I had, in addition to cancer in other organs, I had a 7-inch tumor the size of my entire abdomen. And so he just, again, said, yes, your family needs to come home. They need to come home very, very quickly. And the next step, of course, was a biopsy. They wanted to determine the type of cancer, and they wanted to determine a few other things about it that could only be determined with a biopsy.
But then the prognosis from there was not good.
Yes, the biopsy, by the way, it took my husband 50 hours to get home from Europe. He was actually in Kharkov, Ukraine. He had to get a taxi for 50 hours just to get to Kiev where he could get a flight to the United States. And he's in the rabbit hole of the internet looking up gallbladder cancer. I'm at home looking up gallbladder cancer. I'm alone. I'm processing all this alone, which is really a good thing to do, because with the others around you, your emotions really, you become more emotional. But I had time to really process this. I had time to pray. I had time to read the Bible. I had time to connect with my mother who had passed away many years before. But all of these things were happening at the same time.
Wow. So ultimately they gave you 3 months to live.
They gave me 3 months to live. It was in 9 organs, and they were talking palliative care. Even at the time I went in for the biopsy, they were talking palliative care. And Eric, what palliative care means is keep her comfortable. Keep her comfortable. Don't treat her, keep her comfortable. She's dying, and she's dying fast.
Now, what year was this?
That was in 2007.
2007. Now, over the course of 6 years, you had how many different rounds of chemotherapy and how many surgeries?
Well, lucky for me, I found a doctor at Stanford Cancer Center who was an MD, PhD, and Dr. George Fisher, and he prescribed. When I went to see him, I didn't even have an appointment. My family by then got home a few days later. We got on a flight. We just went to his office because it takes 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to get an appointment, even at the fastest. I didn't even have 2 or 3 weeks. Cancer was growing so fast inside of me. So we get in the doctor's office, and he said, Edie, I cannot cure you, but I'll treat you. And he said, we have to do this. We have to be incredibly aggressive here because the cancer is so aggressive. And he prescribed, and I was in chemo almost immediately. And he prescribed as aggressive chemo as he thought my body could withstand. And that was the beginning. And over the course of the next 5.5 years, it came back. It came back in multiple organs. I had surgeries. But I had 79 rounds of chemo, almost 1 million milligrams of chemo. And there were times I was healthy between all of this. There were times when I was close to death, because that's just how cancer is. You can stop it, but it's so smart, it can pretty much outsmart anything doctors can throw at it.
It's definitely demonic in its,
yes.
It's so insidious, it thrives in chaos. And
totally. It's evil.
It is evil incarnate as we watch it avoid here and replicate there and show up in places where you're not looking. It's really quite extraordinary. But your journey is what's extraordinary. You read Ecclesiastes and a Greek philosopher.
Yes.
That's where you found your wisdom and your comfort. With King Solomon.
Exactly. Proverbs, Psalms, Ecclesiastes. Yes. Prophets. Because what I was experiencing, what we all experience, has been experienced by all of humanity. And the wisdom in the Bible helped me deal with what was happening to me. Not that I could ever understand it, but just to help even to accept it. Now, I accepted it. Now, that didn't mean that I was not going to fight it. But I think acceptance is really important in life. Accept it. Deal with it. The more we accept something, the more we deal with it, the more we can connect with what is happening and take some positive actions, if you will, connect with God. Don't be angry with God. It's not personal. Disease isn't personal. Right. It's just something in my DNA run amok. So,
I had not ever heard of gallbladder cancer before. It just seems so rare. You hear of lung cancer, liver cancer, colon cancer, so many of the more common garden varieties of cancer, but to look at something from the gallbladder, which is today apparently a fairly disposable organ in the body, that because of our processed foods and the way we have introduced different foods into our diet,
it's a puny little organ. We don't need it, Eric. But unfortunately, and it is rare, only about 6,000 people a year get gallbladder cancer in this country. It's more prevalent in places like Poland and Japan and Israel, but in this country it's quite rare. And so it's in the gallbladder, which is a puny little organ tucked underneath the liver. And the problem is it's a silent cancer. And by the time they discover it, it's already in your liver almost always. 75% of all discoveries are already stage 4. And so you're almost dead by the time they discover it. And it also is in your bile duct area, wrapped around your portal vein, your arterial artery, all of those major things down in the center of your body that really controls your life force.
When did you know that you knew that you were going to be victorious?
I don't know that. I still don't know I'm going to be. It depends on what you mean by victorious.
You proved the doctors wrong. You now 6 years later, and this incredible accomplishment of the Mission Walker, and I would say that anything past 90 days is victory. And
yes,
you have had a victory every 24 hours when you wake up the next morning. It's 2 Corinthians 5:17 all over again. Anybody who's in Christ is a new creation. And you woke up, and every day you have victory. That one more day. That's how He gives it to you.
Every day is a bonus day. And that's how I live my life. Every day I wake up, and I basically, my prayer is, Lord Jesus, have mercy on me today. Lord, have mercy on me. And at the end of the day, my prayer as I drift off to sleep is thank you. Thank you. Thank you for another beautiful day.
This is just such an extraordinary story. As you were on the other side of this, 6 years after chemotherapy and the surgical removal of your right lung, you decided to walk the 800-mile El Camino Real mission trail it starts in San Diego and ends up in the Sonoma Valley. And the way you did it was stopping at 21 missions along the way. And I remember those missions all over California, but really didn't equate those as mile markers. And the way you embraced this was extraordinary. And you averaged 15 miles a day in 2013. So we're now 10 years past the diagnosis. Today is 10 years.
Yes. In 2013, I started this walk. It was less than 6 months after Stanford removed my right lung. And to me, it was a walk of joy. It was a walk of gratitude, of thanksgiving. I was alive. But I needed to heal, Eric. I was missing my right lung. I had fought so hard the last 14 months. The chemo had been horrendous to get me to the point where because it was also back in my liver, so we had to subdue it again in my liver. We had to do intense radiation. And that allowed them, because we got it kind of under control in one cavity, the liver, it allowed them to take out the right lung, which removed the cancer. And I was so weakened, if you will, so physically weakened by that, but also emotionally overwhelmed. And I was also spiritually in need of affirmation. And this was a pilgrimage. I wanted to walk the old California Mission Trail to the 21 old Spanish missions that are over 200 years old. And I was to say prayers of gratitude and to just reflect on life and reflect on beauty, just reflect on God, to connect with God. And it was silent. I never listen to music. I don't talk. I just walked. for 55 days on average, as you said, 15 miles a day, one step at a time. And by the way, I became a walking prayer. It was so transcendent. After 400, 500, 600 miles, I was so transcendent. I was so close to God. Walking made me whole. Walking restored the health, my lung capacity. By the time when I got back to San Diego 2 months after the walk, the hospital did a test of my lung capacity. My lung capacity was 80% of normal, and I had one lung.
Praise God. We've been talking with Edie Littlefield Sundby, author of The Mission Walker. More than the author of The Mission Walker, she is The Mission Walker, brought to us by our good friends at Thomas Nelson. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to dig into more of this story of The Mission Walker. We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our 1-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth. Littlefield Sundby, author of The Mission Walker. More than author of The Mission Walker, she every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.i. She got the news that her cancer was in remission. Now, 10 years later, she's sharing her story, true life story with us about this journey. Edie, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
When did this idea, this vision for this mission walk get birthed?
It's interesting how God plants. The day I was diagnosed with cancer, when I left the doctor's office, I was so stunned. I got in my car, I was gripping the steering wheel, I pulled out of the lot, and I realized I could not drive, so I pulled over to the side of the road. There wasn't even really a place to pull over, but I pulled over. And right where I stopped the car to catch my breath, to pray, to try to get a grip, right there on the side of the road was an old mission bell. Now here in California, over 100 years ago, starting in 1906, civic organizations, women organizations, and civic organizations put these mission bells up along the old California Mission Trail. And many of them are still there, that were there in 1906 and 1910, 1920. And they keep replacing them. And one of the things that Ronald Reagan did when he became governor is he had an inventory of all the mission bells, which ones were missing. And one of the first things he did was to make sure that there was a mission bell every single mile in California on the California Mission Trail, because that is our heritage.
Right.
And it tells the story of California in the Old West. So inadvertently, I pulled over right next to one of these old bells. And by the way, we don't even see them because we're driving 80 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour past them. We don't even see these most beautiful mission bells that line our California Mission Trail. So that was when the seed was planted. And I kept going back and I kept seeing more of them. And there was just something about the Mission Trail. I was not from California, but my children in the 4th grade had all done mission projects where they built missions. So I'd been to several of the missions, and I just had this urge to get out there. And I knew I needed to walk. I loved to walk. I started walking very seriously the day I was diagnosed with cancer, and after all my surgeries, everything, I would walk. Walking is really the reason I feel one of the biggest reasons I'm alive and with some vitality. And so when I lost my right lung, how could I heal? What could I do? I needed a purpose. I needed to have something that was bigger than my pain. And I needed to connect with God. And so what better way than to walk the California Mission Trail, to take a pilgrimage, Eric? Years ago, there are primitive cultures today, that's what people do. That's how people restore their health, their spirit. Native Americans took spirit quest. Aboriginals take walkabouts. In times of old, and even today, people go on pilgrimages. So what I did was not unique in any way. I went on a pilgrimage, and it was an 800-mile pilgrimage from San Diego to Sonoma. And it was like a ladder all the way up from the coast over the mountains to the valley and back again, a ladder all the way from San Diego to Sonoma. A transformation occurred. When I got to Sonoma, I did not want to stop walking. And I didn't have to stop walking because the mission trail really does not start in San Diego. The mission trail in California, in fact, starts in Mexico.
Right.
The first capital of California was Laredo, Mexico. So 2 years later, cancer came back in my remaining lung. And I had an opportunity then to finish my dream. I was totally captivated by this mission trail. And I had this wild, crazy urge. I had to finish. God was calling me to finish my mission walk. And so I knew I had to do it. So when cancer came back in my remaining left lung 2 years later, which was in 2015, it hasn't even been 2 years, Eric, since I did this. I got on a plane in October, the end of October, after Stanford successfully treated the tumor in my left lung. We felt they had successfully treated it. We weren't sure. I could have still, been exploding in my lung with cancer, but I knew I couldn't wait. You can't wait in life. And so I went across the border to Tijuana. I got on a Mexican airline, and I went down to Laredo by myself. All I had promised was I had a Mexican guide, a vaquero, a cowboy, for 5 days who was going to try to help me find the old California Mission Trail down there. And also I had a pack mule for 2 weeks. And that's the only promise I had. But I figured that, again, I would be happy with 1 day. I would be happy with 1 week. I would be happy with 1 mile. It didn't matter. I was pursuing my dream. I was doing what I felt I needed to do. What
was your husband's response, and what were your daughter's responses, your children's responses to this mission that you were on? Did they think you had lost your mind? Did they support you and buy into it? Were they reluctant at first for you to go off to Mexico by yourself in this day and time when things are happening over the border that people go over the border, they don't come back? And
exactly.
Here's my mother, my wife, who is taking off, and she's got arrangements with some strange person that's going to take her out in the middle of nowhere by himself, and we're going to trust this scenario.
I've got a really unique, wonderful family. By the way, my children are in their mid to late 20s, and they've got their own lives. I mean, they're pretty much overwhelmed with their own early careers and their relationships and their homes and all those other things. And all they want is for me to be happy.
Right.
Just like that's what I want. I want them to be happy. Well, they want me to be happy. My husband's the same way. We've been married over 40 years. And my husband is a wild and crazy guy. He hates to walk. He hates to walk. He loves to bicycle, and he'll bicycle 2,500 miles, Eric, but he won't walk a mile. He doesn't understand why anyone would walk. But he's very supportive of me. And of course we took precautions. I had a Iridium emergency satellite phone, and the Iridium satellite system is what the U.S. military uses. It's what explorers use in wilderness areas. So I had an emergency phone. I had taken out an insurance policy for emergency evacuation in case something happened to me out there in the wilderness. I could be evacuated if I had to be. And my husband on his computer here in San Diego had the Iridium map. So 3 times a day, I would do a GPS ping on this Iridium satellite phone. I do a GPS ping, and my husband was following exactly where I was on a map on his computer. He really knew more where I was than I knew where I was. Because again, this old mission trail is totally unmapped. It's mainly forgotten. It's cactus choked. It's in the wilderness through the Sonoran Desert, through 5 sierras, through the heartland of Baja, Mexico.
Right.
And so it was a wild adventure. It got my mind completely off of cancer. It empowered me. I had to have total faith and confidence and trust in the Lord, but also people. And my mother always had faith in people. And I have faith in people. Of course, there are bad people out there, but 99 out of 100 are good people. And always just have faith that what is to be will be. Don't do anything really stupid, but don't not live life.
Right. Right. During this time, as you're writing the book, you're walking us through this total journey. You're sharing with us the experience of the chemo, the nuances, the things that are in your remembrance that you want to make sure that you share. This is a legacy. This is a journey. It's quite extraordinary. And your experience with the, I'm reading here what was supposed to be a 5-hour mule ride from Mission Santa Maria to Rancho Santa Ynez took 4 hours galloping and running the mules at top speed the entire distance. I'm just imagining you. You've gone through this second or third or fifth bout of recovery, and now you're becoming not only the mission walker, but you're in the Kentucky Derby with a donkey.
I had 4 surgeries. I had liver surgery, missing 60% of my liver. Had lung surgery, missing my right lung. I had colon and stomach surgery, 10 inches of colon and 2 inches of stomach, plus some throat surgery. And so, yes, I've had these physical things happen to me. But I must say that what cancer did to my inside, the brutal Mexican desert was doing to my outside. And the cactus was horrendous. The mules, these Sierras, we were going places. Of course, the vaqueros, this is where they live. They've actually been here for hundreds of years. Their families were there with the missionaries. Their families were the cow herders and the muleteers and the master craftsmen, the weavers, the carpenters. And so they love this. They love this mission trail. And it took 20 of them because they only know about 20 or 30 or 40 kilometers. And then another vaquero would show up to take me the next 30 or 40 kilometers. And together, we one day at a time, rediscovered the beauty of this old mission trail. We had machetes trying to hack away at the cactus. It was horrendous. Some of the Sierras, the mules did not want to climb these Sierras, so the vaqueros would get off and walk the mules. I tried to walk as much as I could. I walked every single day, but there were many times when walking was just absolutely impossible. And so I had a pack mule, but I also had a saddle mule, together with the vaquero and his saddle mule. And it was a wild, crazy adventure, and it was thrilling. And what can I say? Cancer has taught me that just to live while alive, live. And if you have a dream like you, Eric, you followed your dreams.
Yes.
You followed when God whispered in your ear. You heard and you listened and you went. It's a walk of faith. Every day is a walk of faith. Now my walk, 1,600 miles through crazy wilderness, with all these surgeries, with cancer. Still, I have I have cancer. I go to Stanford Cancer Center every 3 or 4 months. Right now, it's behaving itself, but it could change any time. So you have to live today. Today is the gift.
No, absolutely no question whatsoever. For you, cancer was a life sentence, not a death sentence.
Exactly.
There's old expressions, your attitude determines your altitude. So it reminds me of Joshua and Caleb. All of them went to the doctor. They all got the same report. They all saw the same information. 10 came back with a bad report, and they said that they would surely die. And you know what they did? And two came back with a completely different perspective on what was laying in front of them. And they said, the land's good. The people are fine. This is a great opportunity for us. We'll thrive there. And who led the 600,000 men, 2 million in all, into the promised land was Joshua and Caleb. And so this is such a sterling lesson for all of us that when we hear a piece of news, if we don't embrace it and trust in God. First of all, worrying is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. You know, we tend to worry about so many things. Now, real emotions are real. You had real emotions. You had fear, you had trepidation. I would venture to say it was probably more for the concern for your children and for your husband than maybe for yourself.
Their pain was excruciating to me because they couldn't do anything. I could do something. I could deal with it. And their pain was in many ways greater than my pain.
You know, people don't really understand that. They, I read an article the other day what cancer patients would like you to know. Things they want you to know. Keep in touch. I'm not going to call you when I need something. If you have a desire to bring me something, then bring me something. Don't wait for me. Don't tell me, hey, call me if you need anything. Because I'm not going to call you. I'm not thinking about you. I'm not thinking about your need to satisfy my need. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do to resolve this and how I'm going to fill this. Don't stay away. Don't treat me like I'm a leper. I have cancer. It's not contagious. You're not going to get it if you hang around and visit with me and talk to me. There was a whole list of things that cancer patients want to tell people. Okay? Is that I don't believe I'm going to die. Why do you? I'm not buying into this diagnosis. Why are you entertaining this? What I need is support and uplifting and believing in my vision that God didn't tell me He was finished with me yet. And you had a robust prayer life. This kick-started your prayer life, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It kick-started my life. Like you said, it was a life sentence. Death can be life-affirming, Eric. And I've been very, very close to death. I've been in so many emergency rooms and situations where things are so outside of your personal control that you have no choice but to let go. And when you let go, what do you do? Well, you let God. You let go and you truly let God. And I can remember going into these major surgeries in emergency rooms, and my prayer was the same as the prayer in the desert of Mexico when I was confronted with the possibility of drug smugglers and narcos. And that is, Lord Jesus, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus, have mercy. You know, what's happening in the moment? Lord, have mercy. Have mercy. And inevitably, He does. He does. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that, you know, you can die and be healed. You can die. You know, we believe in heaven. There's hope. You know, heaven is hope. You know, it's never, ever give up hope. Never.
You're exactly right.
And we don't need to give it up, ever.
When you wrote this book, telling your story, why? Who is this for, and why did you write it?
You know, I've written about my cancer journey and some of the things in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. I like to write. Writing is very much like walking. You know, walking is one step at a time. Writing is one word at a time. You get in kind of a rhythm, and when I walk, I'm thinking with my feet, and when I'm writing, I'm thinking with my fingers, if you will. You know, it's like, so it was a wonderful opportunity to tell the story of the California Mission Trail, the story of these missionaries, to tell the story of my family, to tell the story of faith, to tell the story of the cancer journey of uncertainty, and how you try to deal with it, and to pass on some practical knowledge, some practical words of wisdom for people who may find themselves confronted with stage 4 cancer, or any stage cancer, or any catastrophic disease or life situation. It was to share that. It was to share the hope. And I think if there's one message in the Mission Walker, is that God is mystery, life is mystery, and cancer, with everything we know about it, all the medicine, all the science, cancer is still 99% mystery.
Yes.
So accept that. Surrender to mystery, if you will. We are all unique. We are all miracles. Miracles happen every day. And sometimes being alive just today is the miracle.
Well, you're exactly right. We have so many things weighing on us that we didn't have 50 years ago. We have we had the threat of nuclear war back then, but here we are faced with it once again. And I've got tinfoil in my office so I can make a hat, and that's really my response to the whole thing, is that, God is still on the throne, he's still sovereign, and nothing escapes him. And so it's going to be his plan to unfold, not our plan. And why worry? Worry gets you absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. It robs you of every bit of joy. How can people join you in your journey? Where can they find you online? How can they cheer you on as you go on the rest of this walk?
Okay. So I've completed the 1,600-mile mission walk,
right,
the El Camino Real, and I have a website, themissionwalker.com, that has all the pictures, has the map, and has a map that as you pull the cursor over, you actually see pictures of all the walk as I'm doing it. I have a Facebook page, The Mission Walker, and on my website I have ways to contact me directly. I hear from people all over the world, Eric, who are confronted with stage 4 cancer, stage 4 gallbladder cancer. I share with them the details of the chemo that I've been given, of my treatment. What is it that actually, because this is all God's medicine. Everything, the chemo,
right,
everything, the walking is all God's medicine. So I share very openly with people whatever I can do that might be helpful to them in their journey, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual.
Well, I know our audience is going to fall in love with you, that they are just deeply encouraged by your dynamic, by your personality, by your victory, and we want to share in that victory. And I want our audience to share in this victory. Go visit ignitinganation.com, click on Books and Media, and order a copy of The Mission Walker for yourself by Edie Sundby. We've run out of time for this interview, but you've been a fabulous guest on this program, Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heart lines, and biblical truth. You've been all of that. You've been a headline, you've been a heart line, and you have espoused biblical truth, which is the trifecta for what we do. So thank you, Edie, for sharing this story with us. Once again, Edie Sundby, author of The Mission Walker, I Was Given 3 Months to Live. Available from Thomas Nelson Publishing, right there on our website. Order a copy for yourself. It'll be there before the weekend. Edie, thank you again for joining us here on Revealing the Truth.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure, Eric. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. And that brings to a conclusion our live broadcast day, but that doesn't mean we go off the air. We broadcast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right here from the Igniting Nation Broadcasting Network studios in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. You can find us online at ignitinganation.com or inbn.com, or on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Igniting a Nation. We also accept your donations. We are 100% supported by contributions. We do not sell advertising. We are not beholden to anyone except for the inerrant Word of God. You can visit our page, click on the donate button today, and also subscribe to our teaching archives. Over 800 hours of teachings that I've compiled over the last 10 years of my ministry, available to you for just $5 a month subscription. So I encourage you, check out the website, check out all the fabulous authors. We've now conducted over 350 of these interviews, all available for you on our YouTube channel, Igniting a Nation. Go subscribe today and get the latest updates every time we post. And until we see you right back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Central Time, here at the Igniting Nation Broadcast Network studios, we bid you shalom.